Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, Mindset Mojo mentor, Sacred Visibility catalyst, and publisher of the beloved Aspire magazine. You know, I just realized that we're coming up on 6 years of this show, and I have been blessed to circle up with some extraordinary women and bring you conversations to inspire you to live your best life, to trust in your own wisdom. And today we're going to be diving even deeper into the topic of your inner wisdom, your intuition. Throughout the ages, the most extraordinary human beings, from Einstein, DaVinci, and Joan of Arc to Steve Jobs, Oprah, and Stephen Hawking, have attested to one common factor as the secret to their life success: intuition. In today's inspiring conversation, and I guarantee you, you are going to love this conversation because she's one of just a rock star on this topic and just an extraordinary person. Author Kim Chestney redefines intuition for the modern age and empowers all of us to know and trust our intuition so we can experience the extraordinary life we are meant to live. Kim is the author of Radical Intuition, a globally recognized innovation leader and founder of Intuition Lab. Her work has been featured or supported by leading edge organizations, including SXSW Interactive, Carnegie Mellon University, Comcast, Hewlett-Packard, the list goes on. And I've been blessed to feature her in Aspire magazine, and she is actually my beautiful cover model for the February-March 2022 issue of Aspire. Welcome, Kim.
Hi, Linda. I'm so happy to be back and here with you.
Well, I always love circling up with you. We were running behind because we were yapping off the air, just catching up and talking about life and intuition. And, you know, we have such this connection because I'm so attracted to how you lead, Kim, how you talk about radical intuition, how you bring it into corporations. Oh, it's so needed, right?
Indeed.
So let's start with, what is radical intuition? Because I just love the sound of that.
Yeah. So, you know, when I wrote the book, I really wanted to, be able to present sort of a really no nonsense approach to intuition, because, so many of us, we've throughout the years have certain ideas of what intuition is really something that's woo woo, but really it's just a part of our life. It's a different way that we think. And it's kind of a way that a lot of us have forgotten or have been talked out of or conditioned out of in our life. So I really wrote this book to reconnect with intuition in a radical way, which is understanding it as a foundational aspect of the way we think. So as a complement to our intellect, right? Not something that's just for women, not something that is, has to be mystical or spiritual. It is all those things, but it's also something that is just an integrated part of our life that if we start to use every day and focus on that, we can create real magic in our life.
Oh, I love that. And it's so true. It's part of who we are. We're all intuitive is my feeling. We just, I don't want to say become disconnected, because we're never disconnected. We just, I like to say it's like, when you're driving in the old days and you tune the radio station. I remember when I was a kid, like, Mom, tune the radio. That's what I feel like with intuition. It's like sometimes you got to keep tuning it.
Yeah, and that's a really great analogy, because I think what happens is we, as a society, we're so trained to become this mind-based culture that we're just so over-reliant on our rational thinking, information processing side of our mind, that sort of imaginative, intuitive, receptive side gets off off of the antenna, right? So it's something that we're so focused on the mind that this other part of our thinking just gets pushed to the side. So it's always there. And that's one of the reasons why we have these flashes of intuition, right? Like it comes in out of nowhere, it's random. People think that it's this unpredictable thing because it's kind of been pushed aside, and it just kind of comes through in those moments when it can sneak in or pop in. But in truth, the more we start to focus on that and bring it back into focus, bring that needle back into the reception area, then we start to be able to use it more and more and rely on it, and becomes repeatable and practicable. And it's not something that's so random or surprising.
I love how you describe it with such a simplicity to help everyone understand it, because a lot of people, even some family members, I'm not intuitive. I'm
Mhm.
not intuitive. I notice a lot of my friends that are, they use the phrase a lot. I'm always in my head.
Right,
And that to me is a sign that of everything you were just describing, right?
right.
They're not in their heart or in their present or in the present moment. So how can they hear their intuition? That's why they believe they're not intuitive.
Absolutely, because our intuition speaks to us in the silence between our thoughts. So it's so important that we quiet the mind. All that stuff we talk about with like mindfulness, taking a break, just, going for a walk, all these things we do to just be alone with ourselves and be present in the moment. It's so important for our intuition, because that's the space, that spaciousness, like we were talking about, that spaciousness that you create in your life is an open gateway for your intuition. And if we don't have spaciousness, if we're busy, if we're running around a mile a minute, if we're always trying to think things out or figure things out or having anxiety, it's just creating all of the static that prevents that intuition from naturally flowing through us.
So true. And one of the things one of your catchphrases or invitations sounds much more aligned is like join the intuition revolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that. What makes it so revolutionary?
Yeah, yeah. So that's one of my favorite things to talk about, and I'm pretty passionate about that. And it's really started working in tech. I worked in tech for 20 years, and so I kind of had, I had two hats. I had my really spiritual side and writing and teaching intuition, and I also had this side where I worked with big tech companies, worked with innovators, artists, creatives. So all of it was intuition based. But what really started that I started to notice over the course of 20 years, and my first book came out in the Psychic Workshop was in 2004, very much, sort of old school, I approached intuition. And as I started working in technology and in the mainstream corporate world, I started noticing really smart people talking about intuition. People in technology, business leaders, people that were not your usual suspects, to think about how valuable intuition was. So it really caused me to to take a closer look at all of the different ways that intuition was actually revolutionizing our world. And when you look and you kind of actually pay attention to it, and you see that intuition is the force behind the artists, it's the force behind the innovators, the technologists, the scientists. Actually, intuition is infused in everything, and it really is that secret sauce to genius. So if you want to do something different, if you want to be a new inspiring leader, how are you going to do that? You're going to follow your intuition. You're not going to follow other people. You're not going to do what everybody else does, right? You're going to go and follow your own path and create something new and touch people in a new way or bring something new to the world. And that's what intuition's about. And that's why it creates this sort of revolutionary energy, because it brings us into the future where we can expand our consciousness and grow and really, make the world a better place.
I love what you said too about not following everyone else.
Mhm.
Sometimes you get this knowing and you feel like, well, everyone's doing this, especially in business. We'll use business as an example.
Uh-huh.
I've always, especially the last 15 years, gone, oh, well, I don't care what everyone else is doing. It doesn't feel right because I'm a feeler, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't feel right for me. That's another way the intuition is talking.
Absolutely. And that's a huge part of business. And with, with anybody who's, creating something or sharing something with the world, it's about finding your own niche and your own voice and walking your own path. That's what makes you truly successful, because you're bringing your own personal calling into the world. And that's what our intuition's here for. It's to show us not just the path, not just any path, our own unique path and what we're called to do. So when we follow our intuition, we listen to that, instead of, oh, well, my friend's doing this, so I should probably do this, right? Because you know that you can feel the difference. Like you said, you can tell, you know the truth by the way it feels, right? You can tell the difference when you're walking your truth or when we're following someone else's truth, right? So that's the secret, is learning how that feels and staying in alignment with that personal truth.
Yeah, it's like I call them soul whispers,
Mhm.
right? Like they sometimes for me they just bubble up and I just know and that's it. It's
Yep.
like I'm done. I no longer doubt my connection with my intuition, but it took me years to do the dance. Like,
Yes.
well, that's just a feeling. Like, and then my mind would jump in. Like, that's not even logical. Why would you even be thinking of
Of
doing
course,
that?
it always does. That's actually a good sign. When your mind is like second guessing like that, that's probably told you that you've really got some sacred intuition there. Your mind can't make sense of it, but it was actually something real. So that's actually something to pay attention to as a validation for your intuition.
No,
But
I
one,
love it. It used to be like this dance, and sometimes it become a boxing match between the
yes,
two. And now I notice, I think the ego or that other voice has given up because it's like, I'm
yes,
never going to win. I'm never going to win.
great.
Because I feel into things. So we're going to take our first break, Kim. And when we come back, I want to talk about, because again, I have family members, friends. I'm not intuition. I don't have, I'm not tapped into my intuition, but you believe everyone can develop it.
Yep.
So let's talk about that when we come back. I'll be right back. I'm with Kim Chestney, author of Radical Intuition, and I invite you take a moment to visit kimchestney.com. We'll be right back, my friends.
This is OTRFM, part of the IOM radio network.
Inspiration for a Woman's Soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Hey America, we need to have a little talk. We've got more food than we know what to do with in this country, yet 17 million kids in America are struggling with hunger. Makes no sense. Luckily, the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks has volunteers gathering excess food and getting it to hungry kids. They're kind of like food angels. Hey, become a food angel yourself by supporting Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org. We can't do it without your help. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Hi everyone, this is Shay Parker, the host of Best of the Best, which airs live right here on IOM Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited to bring you expert guest hosts, spiritual discussions, free psychic readings, and so much more. I can promise that you will not want to miss this one-of-a-kind, fun, yet touching, down-to-earth show. Join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on OTRFM. This is Shay Parker, and I can't wait to see you there.
This is OTRFM, part of the IOM radio network.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversation, and we're talking about radical intuition. So, Kim, does everyone have intuition, and can everyone develop it?
Yes and yes. That's one of the biggest questions I get. It's like, especially when I first met my husband, he's like, oh, I don't have intuition. I'm a tech guy in the army and we don't have intuition. But then like after living with me, he's like, wow, he's like one of the most intuitive people I know. The reality is we all have it. We just don't often know what it is. I think there's not a lot of education out there in the mainstream world as to what intuition really is. You know, there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of misinformation, but part of my mission is really helping to like normalize that and help people understand how everybody has it. And it's really a natural part of our thinking process that makes everything we do better. We can do everything better when we use our intuition. It doesn't just have to be like, you know, spiritual things or, you know, any or creative things. It's anything, whether you're picking which way to go to work and you want to have the best route that doesn't have any traffic, your intuition can help you with that. Whether you're building your business, whether you're trying to be a good leader and have empathy for, your team. There's just so many ways that intuition infiltrates our lives, and it's very unique. So we all use it in different ways, and we, like a talent, we all have our own strong points. So part of it's understanding the different types of intuition and how everybody's their own unique brand of intuitive.
So let's talk about the 4 types of intuition. Like, what are they? How do they work?
Yeah. So intuition flows into us and through us, just, like anything else, through this basic 4 elements of our body. We have a body, a physical body, we have a heart, we have a mind, and we have a spirit. So those sort of 4 elements that are the archetypal metaphor for human being, sort of Jung popularized that a lot. And a lot of this ties right into things like the Myers-Briggs and understanding those 4 dimensions of human existence. And so intuition flows through those pathways differently for everybody. Like some people might be knowers. They just know things. There'll be times where like, oh, I just have this, I know this, kind of like you said earlier. I don't know why my brain thinks that I'm crazy, but I just know it. So they're in their head, but they have this really strong mindful intuition because that pathway is open. Other people are really good feelers. They sense things, they feel things, they have empathy, all of that stuff. Other people might even have, physical intuition in their bodies. Their bodies speak to them. There's so many different ways which our bodies communicate with us. And ultimately, the spiritual side of intuition really opens up the doors for some really profound connective experiences with life. And this is the sort of the realm of the mystics and transcending the boundaries of space, time, and this world that we live in. So everybody has sort of different affinities to different types, and it's like a soup. We all have our own blend, but we all use a little bit of all of them. But it's different for everybody.
Yeah, I'd say I'm stronger in the knowing. All of a sudden, I'll just receive it. But it's something you said earlier. You have to create the space and the silence too.
Mm-hmm.
Because I look back and say, okay, I believe I've always been intuitive, but because I was always chasing, striving, pushing, going 100 miles an hour, drinking 4 medium-iced coffees a day, 30 years ago, there was never space for me to hear. And I can see moments that I experience it, but now it just drops in because there's space. And so is that an important part of defining which of other 4 types we may have, is creating the space to play?
Absolutely. I love that, the space to play. It is really one of the foundational things that I teach my students in Intuition Lab, my intuition school. The first thing that we do is slow down, make space, spend more time with ourselves. Those are so key in opening up that gateway to the intuitive dimension. It's the most important thing we can do. If we don't do that, then all of the other stuff isn't going to work. So it's so important to get into that place of calm, quiet, stillness, so that you can hear your inner voice, so that you open up space for those thoughts to pop in, so that you recognize those feelings when they come. And then once you're in that space, then you can start to work with that. You can start to move deeply into it and expand it, and then sort of live from that place. And then it's there 24/7. It's not something that it just comes in a burst. You can start to rely on it. It becomes a part of your life. It's the more that you open space for your quiet, for yourself, for that presence within you, the stronger your intuition will become.
I found that to be true in my own life. And it's such a more peaceful way of navigating life. You know what I mean? For myself anyway. It's just this knowing that within me are the answers I seek, where for 30, 35 years I was out there trying to find the answers, thinking they were all out there. But our soul knows and is always open to communicate with us, but we have to give it the space to listen.
Yes, absolutely.
And Kim, in your work, you talk a lot about mindfulness and insightfulness. So tell us more about that, and I can see how it all ties in to that space, giving ourselves space.
Yeah, right. Like I feel like insightfulness is sort of the second step after mindfulness. Mindfulness has just become a way of life for so many of us. We recognize that, it's the counterpoint to living in this crazy world of technology and that we live in right now, right? So if we really need to take that pause and step back and become mindful in what we're doing. But that's not the end. The way I see it and the way I live is that that's just the beginning. Once you get into that mindful place, you create that spaciousness for a lifestyle of insightfulness. And what that means is living each day with your intuition by that insight, instead of always looking to the outside world, gauging everything against what other people are doing, what's happening and the conditioning in society. You're gauging everything against that inner voice, that inner guidance, that insightfulness that just flows through you, helps you make decisions, guides your feelings, gives you strength, leads you to calm. When you start living from that place, then we become healthier and happier, and we balance the mindfulness, insightfulness beautifully in our life.
Yeah, it's so true. And, our conversation before we come on the air, I had shared that I had just had a physical experience, and how I chose to navigate it was looking at the blessings, right? Like, that's all to do with like how we choose to be mindful in our life. Like, I choose to see blessings. I choose to listen to my intuition through that whole thing, instead of what I could have easily, or any of us could, is the fear of what was happening or the story I could create around myself. So as mindfulness, you use it as a tool to like almost always keep recalibrating so you can stay aligned with your truth.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm so glad that you shared that with me, because it really is a great example about how, really opening up to that dimension of yourself, using mindfulness to stay on your center, to stay in your calm, and stay in touch with that true core, whole healed self within. So no matter what you're going through, the stress or the anxiety or the illness, there's still that part of you that's connected to that higher part of yourself, right? Because there's the higher part of yourself. Your higher self is, what we call it, right? And that's the part of you that knows everything, the part of you that realizes this is just a little moment in time that we're all living through. And when we can shift and live from that place and endure, pain and hard times from that place, we can handle these moments with grace. We handle them with a kind of joy that instead of making something painful and a negative experience, it actually heals and brings healing to everybody around you who witnesses and feels that energy from your own healing.
I found that to be so true in my own life. And as someone, when I was young, I really suffered with a lot of anxiety and depression. So, of course, even though I've been on the spiritual journey for 30 years, it's something I have to be conscious of. So if life has a stressful circumstance, if I catch my thoughts, right, I always ask myself, and now I'm wondering from this conversation, I'm probably speaking to my soul, my intuition, but say an anxious thought or a fear-based thought, especially when it comes to my loved ones, I have that tendency of, and so I'll catch myself and I go, is that the truth of who you are, Linda? Is that thought true? Because when I just stop and ask that question, my soul is going to rise up and answer it. Not that, so that's been like a powerful tool for me to learn how to bring myself back in the moment. And that's mindfulness.
I love that. I love that. What a great practice. And because there are many voices in our head. One of the things that was like, oh, listen to your inner voice. Well, the reality is we have more than one inner voice, as most people know. There's that inner critic. There's those fears. There's all those things that come, from our ego and from, that place within us that we're not solid on. But when you by asking that question, by saying, is that is that what you mean, is that you, is that your truth, you do sort of make that connection intentionally with that higher part of yourself and allow yourself to hone into that true voice, because intuition really is about learning how that true north, that true solid inner voice feels, that one true north, and allowing you to kind of weed out all those other feelings and judgments and thoughts that are really coming from the ego, instead of that true knowledge and wisdom and guidance that's coming from your eternal abiding self.
Oh, so beautifully said. And some of the other language tricks I use for myself is this love speaking, because intuition is soul, which is divine, it's that energy. And so, sometimes that old stuff will come up. And when I say, that's fear speaking, or is this love speak? And I ask both. It brings me right back into where I want to be, because in the moment of asking the question, I then have the choice, which some people don't like having that choice. I then have the choice, Kim, to either say, I'm going to continue with this line of thinking, which is not supporting my highest self, or I have the choice to choose something aligned with my soul. But it's in asking the question that the moment of choice comes. And for me, that's powerful because I'm no longer a victim of my thoughts. I get
Absolutely.
to choose.
Absolutely. It takes you out of the moment. I love that because, when you're in it, we've all been there. We've been in those emotions. We've been in the fears. We've been wrapped up in it. And we're just sort of going along with this state by stepping back and separating yourself from it and asking that question. And you become that watcher. You become that person who's actually observing the situation, which is the place of the higher self that recognizes all of this stuff happening. So I think that is such a powerful tool and a powerful practice. And I really would recommend people doing that when they're in that place and you just don't know, right? Because there's sometimes when you have to question yourself because you're like, is this a real valid fear? Or is this just, something that my ego is cooking up? Because, there's times when you're responding to things that are real. And there's times when we're responding to emotions or things that are not real. So stepping back from that interplay and putting that to your true self and your higher self, and then tuning into it, getting that needle of resonance back into the situation. Does it feel like my higher self? Does it feel like my truth? Or does it feel like I'm coming from a place of fear? And just that act in itself can be so valuable in finding that truth and weeding out those questionable thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, it's been such a powerful way for me to have that conversation with myself.
I
We're going
love
to
it.
take our next break. And we come back, I want to talk about some of the ways our society is going through what you've termed as the intuition revolution. So we'll be back in a moment, my friends. I'm with Kim Chestney. Learn more at kimchestney.com.
This is OTRFM, part of the IOM radio network.
Are you being called to step into your truth and embrace your divinity? Are you ready to align your heart and soul, live an authentic life, and become a divine magnet for love and abundance? It's time to listen to your inner wisdom and clear the blocks holding you back from your best life. Leading intuitive prosperity coach, Akashic Records practitioner, and evidential medium Jamie Hearn of liveyourdivinity.com empowers and supports spiritual women like you to align your inner and outer worlds, embrace your soul's truth, and live your divinity. Through her intuitive gifts, grounded wisdom, and empowered coaching, Jamie guides women back into sacred alignment with their truth. Visit liveyourdivinity.com to learn more about Jamie's empowering programs and to schedule an Akashic record reading.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Hailing Light, on OMTimes Radio every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Hailing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
Me, a cat moving in with a new human. It took a little getting used to. She has these weird games she likes to play, like this giant feather. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. It's almost like she thinks I enjoy it. But seeing how much fun she gets out of it, well, I guess it makes it all worth it. Humans.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
This is OTRFM, part of the IOM radio network.
You're listening to Inspired Conversations. With me today is the author of Radical Intuition, Kim Chestney. We're talking about how you can connect, because yes, you can, with your soul's wisdom, with your intuition. And so, Kim, you believe that our society is going through an intuition revolution. What does that look like? What have you discovered in your work?
Yeah. So I think there are so many things that are happening in tandem with this, things that are tied together with intuition. And if you look back over, I don't know, let's say 100 and 150 years of how the world has changed, you can see us moving from sort of I don't want to say like sort of a mind-based patriarchal system of understanding the world and knowledge systems. And now we're moving into this place where we understand, first of all, if you want to talk in terms of physics, the whole revolution in physics, the scientific revolution of the last century with quantum physics and quantum reality is one thing that is so tied in to intuition. And this is really going to be the subject of my next book, is talking about how quantum physics is really talking about intuition and all of the things 100 years ago when we had these intuitive experiences, when you knew something before it happened. When something like that happened 150 years ago, we didn't understand quantum physics. It was something crazy or scary, or like the witches were coming, it was like such a mystery. And now we understand that's actually how the quantum world works. We are all connected. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do these things. And there is no such thing as the past and the future. And all of these things are illusions of the time that we live in. So suddenly, first of all, in terms of just the reality we're living in, we know that intuition and the way it operates is 100% natural in the quantum world. It's not natural in the Newtonian old school world of ups and downs and mind-based thinking, but it's natural in the quantum view that we now understand. And that also ties into social issues, the rise of the feminine, the feminine mind, the receptive mind, the creative mind. All of this stuff is becoming more important as more women are coming into power in the world. More women are using their femininity, like, with all the work you do with all these amazing women in this network, to bring the feminine power. And a lot of that is intuitive, right? Because women are more naturally intuitive in many cases, or are attuned to that energy, right? It's not a male-female thing, but it is often more natural for people who identify with the female energy. And that, along with it, brings this different approach to life and this different kind of thinking that makes things like innovation and ingenuity and really blazing these new trails that we're doing very much an intuitive, receptive centered process, instead of the old school way of everything has to be like founded on knowledge systems and proved empirically. It's a whole different way of viewing the world.
And I can hear your passion and excitement for it. And what I love too is, like, corporations are now opening to receive this kind of information. So you do a lot of work and have been supported by some leading edge organizations. So how does that look when you're in an organization like that? Like, what is it that they're yearning for you to show them?
Yeah. So I think when we look at intuition in terms of big business and innovation, mostly it comes in terms of things like creativity and ingenuity and new ways to approach things and lead, right? Leadership is huge. Intuitive leadership is so important, because if you're not intuitive, you don't know how to read your people, you don't know how to reach your people, whether it's your people on your team or your customers. So there's so many different ways that intuition really naturally applies to being successful in business, leading business, innovating in business, being creative. Like creativity and intuition, innovation, all of those things are just go hand in hand. So there are some very practical outlets, learning how to create, how to brainstorm, how to innovate, how to pivot, how to become agile. There's so many different ways that intuition helps you when you're working either from a small business to a huge corporation, to being a CEO, being an entrepreneur, and all the different levels. Your intuition is really your best friend when it comes to all of that stuff.
I just love that you're noticing the shift in how corporations are showing up. So when did you notice that shift?
Well,
you've been doing this 20 years.
Yeah, I think it was probably might have been 10 or 15 years ago. I was on a board and we were in a meeting, and I was with, there's professors from Carnegie Mellon University, like everyone was 10 million times smarter than me. They all had 10 million more degrees than me. It was one of those moments I remember being like, wow, everybody in this room has like multiple degrees and they're so smart. And then I remember them looking to what I was doing. Like I had been doing something that was just amazing. And, they were asking me to speak, and they were asking me to lead all of these different initiatives. And I'm like, but I don't have the credentials, but I didn't go to this fancy school or that fancy school. But what I did have was my intuition and the ideas and the projects and the different approaches that I had by following my intuition was tapping into that genius that you don't get from getting a degree or from, learning, so to speak. All that learning stuff is great. It's a great complement to our intuition. We want to balance both sides of our brain, but that intuition is the secret sauce, right? And that's when I realized that we were really onto something with tapping into this intuition as that secret sauce of success.
Yeah, and as I introduced you at the beginning, at the very opening, about some of the biggest brilliant minds that we know attribute their intuition to their success, right? And we're hearing it. What I love now is you're hearing more and more leaders talk about spirituality, intuition, mindfulness, and I'm like, yes, because you can feel the shift happen, the revolution, as you call it. Right. You can hear it happen just in the conversations that are no longer in little back rooms. They're speaking their truth out loud.
Right.
And that excites me.
Me too. And, when you see it happening, it's a very natural process. It's not like, I'm going in and saying, oh, I have psychic powers and this is going to happen and this is going to happen. It's not that kind of intuition, right? It's very much embedded in the natural flow of an organization. It's something that any of your employees, any of your leaders, anybody who's working on the team can utilize these practices, and it's very normalized. So, really just understanding that it's an element to be looked at and considered and to be fostered. It's so exciting to see these really successful companies like Steve Jobs. He's the poster boy for all this stuff, because Apple, he was a huge fan of intuition, and pretty much everything he did at Apple was intuition centric. So you can see how someone can reach such like unprecedented success that he had with that company by following his intuition.
And one of the things that you just said is about how it's almost come like a full circle of like the industry of masculine leaders like Steve Jobs and others. Who's the other one I keep thinking of? The airline guy. God, I'm going blank.
Elon Musk.
Yes, and then there's the other one. Jeepers, I don't want to lose my thought, but he always talks about intuition. He has the island everybody goes to.
Bill Gates.
Richard Branson. Yeah, so Branson talks a lot about that too, and I say, for myself, for me, something you said a moment ago really resonated, because I'm pretty transparent. Years ago, I was a welfare mom, and I got off welfare, turned my life around, and 2 years later opened my first business 30 years ago. And about 3 years in, Kim, maybe 4, the business grew so fast. I had no business, no marketing. I was a high school dropout, and they wanted me to speak at like Simmons Business School and all these. And I said the same thing you said. What am I doing? I said, how can I speak here? These people are all educated. And they said, yes, but what you're bringing to your marketing and sales is something we can't teach them. Yes. And I never forgot that. I didn't understand it, I'll be honest, because I was in my story like, who am I to speak at Center for Women in Enterprise and Simmons College and Bentley University on that when I was a high school dropout? And I didn't get it then, but I see now, because of what you just said. I was probably always tapped into my intuitions, how I've grown my businesses, how I want to lead, even though I didn't label it that. So thank you, because you just put a piece of my puzzle together based on, and I love knowing that I wasn't alone and having that conversation with myself.
And isn't it a wonderful feeling to realize that, and to realize that something that you had was so intrinsically valued? Because we're so conditioned to measure things off of things like education and degrees, right? And that's changing now, right? Because now we realize that there's something just as valuable, if not more valuable, that we go through when we follow our intuition and we gain that experience and we do these things that are really tapped into that inner genius, that there's no training for that other than learning to listen to that voice within you.
Yeah, it's so beautifully said it because we all have our family stuff, right? And I've had family members who they were adamant that their children had to go to college, and the pressure, and it never mattered what the child wanted. It was always said from the time of birth. And for me, with my daughter, she's 37 now, I always said the opposite. I said, if you follow your heart, you will always find your way. And, of course, that was woo to my family. But guess what? She's the most grounded, loving, amazing woman who is living her ideal life with peace, not striving or pushing. And she found what she loves to do. And that, to me, is a gift that we give them. Instead of putting outside parameters on our children that doesn't even see their own soul or identity.
Right.
Do you notice that a lot with your clients or conversations you have?
Yeah, I mean, it really is important. And it's something that I think even as parents, I notice as a parent, I have to check myself on that, right? Because, we have this instinct to control and to do, we really are conditioned, whether we realize it or not, all of us, you growing up in the society, there's just parts of society that are just embedded in there. And we have to work to stand against that and to follow our own path and, to encourage our children and the people that we love to follow their own paths. Because, it's that kind of popular idea that the herd mentality, right? If everybody does it, it must be right. It must be safe. You go out on your own and, that's when you don't know. That's when the unexpected happens. But it's in that unexpected territory when you get out of your comfort zone. That's where the magic happens. So we have to find that way of encouraging our family and our loved ones and people around us to get out of our comfort zones and take those chances and those risks if that's what we're called to do. What you said really summarizes it. If you follow your heart, if you do as your intuition calls you, no matter what you do, you can't go wrong.
Yes. Kim, we're going to take our last break. We're going to come back for a short 8-minute segment. And I would love, when we come back, if you would share a couple things people can do right now to jumpstart their intuition. We'll be right back, my friends, for the final segment. I'm with Kim Chestney. You can learn more about all her sacred offerings and everything she's doing in the world at kimchestney.com. We'll be right back.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Are you struggling to grow your mission-driven business in a way that feeds your soul and fulfills your purpose? When you discover your unique human design and divine blueprint, you'll feel empowered in your business, aligned with your inner wisdom, and open to the flow of abundance and success. Nancy O'Keefe is a certified human design specialist and intuitive business coach, successfully coaching entrepreneurs for over 25 years. She is passionate about helping you understand your divine design and your personal formula for success. She knows what it takes after creating her own multi-7-figure firm. Nancy helps women peel back the layers of who they've been taught to be to reveal who they truly are, so they can build an abundant and sustainable business that feeds their soul. Schedule your complimentary call today at nancyokeefecoaching.com.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern, as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
This is OTR FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm in conversation with the beautiful Kim Chestney. So, Kim, what are a couple things that our listeners can do right now if they're interested in jump-starting their intuition?
Yeah, and they're really simple things. There's a few really simple things you can do right now. And it begins with what we mentioned earlier, which is just slowing down. That's always the first step, is slowing down, creating space. So I always say, create more white space in your life. So even if you have to go and take Fridays off, or put a marker on your calendar for an hour a day or a half hour a day, or whatever time you can squeeze away for yourself, create a ritual, create some time, create an intention to be with yourself and make some space where you are alone, where you can open up into that place of stillness and presence where your intuition can speak. So that's the first step. I always have to encourage people who want to develop their intuition. Whatever you love to do by yourself, do more of it. Go for more walks, take long bubble baths, showers, whatever you need to do just to spend that more time and open that space. And once you start to do that, that's how you kind of initiate or sort of awaken that intuitive nature within yourself. And then you can start to look for the little things, because your intuition is going to start to speak to you more. And the more you do that, the more you're going to notice. So one of the things I always like to tell folks to start doing is pay attention to the thoughts and feelings, sensations that come to you out of nowhere, right? Because that's one of the key traits of your intuition. You don't think it up. It's not an active process. It's totally different than the intellect, where we're thinking and we're processing and we're responding to stimuli in the outside world. That's all a different side of our mind. With intuition, it's so easy because all we do is receive it. All we do is open up that space and it pops in like that. So that's the hallmark of your intuition. So when something just pops into your mind, maybe even like, oh, I forgot I didn't turn off the stove. That's an intuition, right? That's something that comes in. So the same thing can happen when it's like, oh, maybe I should reach out to this person. And your intuition knows that that person is having a bum day and needs a friend, right? Or maybe I should try this new idea for my business. I just, think this is something that'll be great. But you would never have thought of those things if you were busy sitting at your desk doing a million things. You have to open up that space so those little things can pop in. So open the space, pay attention to the things that come to you out of nowhere, the feelings and the thoughts, and then make a commitment really to follow through with them and go deeper in them and pay attention to how they feel. That idea of resonance, of knowing the truth by the way that it feels, is really important. Start gauging things when you're making a decision, like, oh, how does that feel? This seems like the right decision with my mind, but does it feel right? And once you start to understand what your intuition feels, right? Because your intuition will guide you towards things. It will feel good, right? If you can tell it's your intuition, if it feels good, if it feels expansive, if it feels inspired or creative, it will energize you. That's the path that your intuition leads you on. Something makes you feel small or closed down or little or bad. That's not your intuition. That's your mind. That's your critical self, all those other voices in our head. So follow that resonant, expansive voice within you, or that feeling within you, and then commit to following through with that and see how it goes. See how often that's the right choice, because it will always be the right choice. Because people always ask me, what happens when intuition's wrong? It's like, well, intuition's never wrong. Intuition is literally synonymous with truth. It is your best friend. What happens is, sometimes we confuse our intuition with other things, and that's how it can seem like it's wrong, because we actually followed a feeling or a fear or a hope or an aspiration instead of that true north. So those are 3 things you can kind of start doing to put into practice right now to start getting into that zone. And I do have that free Intuition Awakening guide it's on my website that goes over all the stuff in detail, that you can, kind of use it as an outline to practice these things and just sort of start getting into that intuitive space 24/7.
Well, I love the strategies you shared, especially the one about taking action, right?
Hmm.
Because a lot of people go, "Oh, I listen," and I'm like, "Well, did you do it?" And like, "No, it sounds so silly to, do it. It's not logical." I'm like, "Hello, you," because I found that your intuition, the divine, the universe, as you take action on those intuitive hits, the universe goes, "Oh, she's listening. Let me give her a little more." And
Absolutely.
and then it becomes this beautiful dance and it becomes more instantaneous. And I like to see it as a game, right? It's like, "Ooh, I can't wait to see what happens when I follow this," because I've learned that when I follow it, magic happens. Things
Yes.
that I could not have intellectually or from an egoic mind created.
Absolutely. It is magic. That's what intuition is so fun. That's what so many of like my students talk about. Like, that's the thing. You learn your intuition. It's not work. It's fun because you get to witness the magic. You get to see these things happen that people tell you are impossible. And it's exciting to witness these things happening in this world of possibility that we never thought was possible. So it really does become this process of really opening up to the magic in your life.
Yeah, and then that's the word that I go for is fun. And I've been teaching my granddaughter because she's really open and intuitive. She's 10 now,
Hmm.
and she has so much fun. And she's like spot on. Do you know what I mean? She's like
Yes.
wide open. But I have these conversations with her because, like you said, the world doesn't teach this. School doesn't teach this. She has some family members on the other side who believe that's bull crap, right? So
Hmm.
they're like, "That's not real." And I'm like,
Hmm.
"Baby, it's real. You just listen
Hmm.
to your heart, not anybody else's words." You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because I'll speak for myself. I grew up, that kind of conversation didn't exist.
Right.
So I want this generation, the grandchildren, to grow up going, "Oh yeah, baby,
Yep.
I have it." And I think it's such a gift. It's one of the best gifts we can give our children.
So true. Because, we've just again gotten into that habit of conditioning people out of our intuition because it's not quote unquote real. Right. Now we understand that real is a very flexible term.
Oh,
And
yes, it is.
and intuition's a lot more real than we thought it was. So teaching our young generations to nurture that imaginative, intuitive, creative side is so important in the coming generations.
Yeah, and I believe too, it builds the self-trust muscles,
Hmm.
right? So that when
Absolutely.
they get to older and need to make harder decisions, they're going to have another place to go to other than what the world says is, your mind or chase the accolades and all of that. They're going to have that quiet, still voice. It'll be up to her to continue honing it once she's an adult, but with a strong foundation, I believe it'll just be second nature.
Absolutely. I love that. It really does build that self trust muscle. And that's what it's all about because you need to have that center that's something comes up and you're not sure about or something doesn't feel right and you need to commit to that. It can save your life. I've had countless people tell me stories about how following their intuition or not following their intuition have had really, important outcomes in their life one way or the other. And if we're in that zone where we know how to trust ourselves and we recognize that intuitive voice inside us, it really can save us a lot of pain. It can keep us out of danger and it can really open doors of opportunity because we know how to follow it when we're aligned with ourselves.
Yeah, and as we've been discussing, it's so much fun.
And it is so much fun.
And I want to invite first off, I want to say thank you, Kim, for joining
Oh,
me, for
thank
sharing
you.
space with me, sharing your wisdom with my audience. I'm so grateful for your presence here. And
Anytime. It's
everyone,
such a pleasure.
I want to invite everyone too to visit Kim at kimchestney.com. Grab her free gift, check out all her sacred offerings, connect with her on social media. You'll find everything on her website, kimchestney.com. And until next time, my friends, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness. Blessings.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.